समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि मैं क्या करूं क्या ना करूं, मेरी तो मत ही मारी गई है।
अरे तो परेशान क्यों होते हो? F&M अकाउंटेंट से राब्ता करो ना, वो तुम्हारी हर तरह की प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर देंगे। हर सही दराज से अवाम की खिदमत में पेश हैं और हर तरह के बिजनेस अकाउंट के लिए मसलन कंप्यूटराइज्ड अकाउंटिंग एंड बुक कीपिंग, पेरोल सर्विसेज, RTI, वेट रजिस्ट्रेशन एंड रिटर्न, सेल्फ असेसमेंट, कॉर्पोरेशन टैक्स एंड HMRC compliance, companies formation and CH compliance, cash flows, business plans, commercial loans, tax rebates, HMRC investigation और मुख्तलिफ सर्विसेज के लिए एक भरोसामंद नाम है। F&M Accountants, 290 Keighley Road, Frising Hall, Bradford 9. Telephone 490-595. F&M Accountants.
Pack Meat Supplier Limited, where quality meets affordability. We're proud to offer 100% halal meat and poultry at unbeatable prices, direct to the public. Chicken breast for just £5.80 per kilo, or juicy chicken legs at £3.50 per kilo. We've got you covered. Chicken keema is a steal at £4.50 per kilo. Get a full lamb for only £8.50 per kilo, or treat yourself to tender lamb chops at £13 per kilo. Our full sheep is just £5.50 per kilo, and mixed sheep for £6.50 per kilo is a must-try. So why wait? Visit Pack Meat Supplier Limited today and stock up on premium halal meat without busting your budget. Pack Meat Supplier Limited, Unit 559, Spencer Road, Bradford BD 72 HD. Telephone 01274503591. Your taste buds and your wallet will thank you.
क्या आप पाकिस्तान या आजाद कश्मीर में सामान भेजना चाहते हैं और अच्छी सर्विस, अच्छा रेट और टाइम पर सामान की डिलीवरी चाहते हैं, तो फिर स्पीडी कार्गो सर्विसेज से आज ही राब्ता करें। स्पीडी कार्गो डोर टू डोर सर्विस फराहम करते हैं। हमेशा याद रखिए, स्पीडी कार्गो सर्विसेज 107 लेग्रम्स लैंड, ब्रेडफोर्ड 7। टेलीफोन 0796098324। स्पीडी कार्गो सर्विसेज, आपके एतमाद का नाम।
So, you have an idea? Well, you're not special, so does everyone else. What really matters is the execution. Maybe you need some help. Make a wish with genius. 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 The hardest part is getting started, but we make it the easiest. Make a wish with genius. Make a wish with genius. That's branding, graphics, logos, marketing, and really whatever you need for promo. Make a wish with genius. 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 That's DJENIUS.UK. Make a wish today.
Brother, why do you look upset?
Brother, since all morning, no customer coming, sitting, doing nothing.
Would you like to expand your business from small scale to large? Then don't delay and advertise on Apni Awaaz today. Call Shakil Javed on 078-381-49654 and take advantage of our special advertising packages.
Get your business thriving. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Radio Apni Awaaz. This is your Sunday afternoon show with your host, Brother Abu Mussa, live with Abu Mussa on Sunday afternoon, inshallah. This show goes right from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. and today, inshallah, you will have the pleasure of being entertained by me for the next hour, inshallah. And I have some interesting conversations, discussions, and opinions for you today, inshallah, on a variety of subjects, be that politics, be that sports, be that self-improvement, everything and anything that I can put under the hat in an hour, I will deliver to you in this short period of time. As always, brothers and sisters, this is Radio Apni Awaaz. You can catch us on the app, and you can also get us online, and you can also get us on digital radio if you have one. So please tune in and spread the word and promote the word out there. We have lots of interesting shows here for the Muslim community and the community at large also. As I said, we discuss many various topics, and we have quite a few brothers coming on after me. We're going to be discussing their political issues, topics, which are quite interesting also for you to catch. So anyway, back to my show. So what's been going on? As you're all aware, and those of you that generally listen, and those of you that are maybe just tuning in for the first time, I always like to kick off my show with a bit of a review of the week. And the review of the week, what does it mean for you, the listener out there? It's generally some things that I might have come across, that I might have thought about, that pops into my head as a conversation or discussion that I can just air my views and opinions on, and things that may have happened throughout the week. So, as those of you that are fanatical about the mixed martial arts world, you will know that UFC 311 last night happened, or this morning for us actually, because I was up in the early hours of the morning, and may I say before I start this, I am not one of those who loses his sleep over anything, and I rarely ever get up for any events in the night. And for those of you that know, most of the UFC fights that take place, they do take place in America, and generally the time it's aired there is the early hours here when most of us are fast asleep, and that means in the hours of 3, 4, 5 a.m. in the morning. And I was up. Actually, my son got me up this morning. Alhamdulillah, got me up this morning about 3 o'clock. We rushed downstairs and we put on the fights. And of course, we were looking forward to the main card, which had the Nurmagomedov cousin, Omar Nurmagomedov, and Islam Makhachev, two Muslim athletes that we are very kind of keen on in our household. I've got pretty much all my sons interested and, what can I say, not obsessed, but uh, got an enthusiasm about these athletes. So we're quite keen on their progress and how they get on. And as you're aware, those of you that watched and are kind of avid kind of followers of the sport, Islam Makhachev won his fight. Alhamdulillah, he defeated his opponent in the first round. And for those of you that know, he was supposed to fight Arman Sarukian from Armenia, and that was the real challenge for Islam Makhachev, because Islam is a very complete fighter, and most of his competitors that he has, they're either good in a particular area of fighting, i.e., maybe striking that they're very good at, or jiu-jitsu, but nobody is as complete a fighter as Islam Makhachev. But Arman Sarukian came very close in terms of being one of those most complete fighters, that he can also wrestle, he can strike, he can grapple, he has all the multiple skills in mixed martial arts to be a complete fighter. And that's, you might wonder, why is he going on about mixed martial arts? Why is he talking about mixed martial arts? A couple of things, and you will realize the reason why I brought this up in conversation. And of course, Khabib's cousin, Omar Nurmagomedov, also was involved in the main card. He was fighting for the bantamweight title against Merhab Dashvili, who is from Georgia, but now resides in America. And unfortunately for Omar, he did not win his fight. It was a very close fight all round. The champion of that division was a little bit stronger on the day. His fight was a bit more superior to Umar's. So unfortunately for Umar, he did not win this time. But he's only young. He's 28 years old. He has a bright future ahead of him, and I'm sure he will regain that title or win that title at some point in his future. But reason why I brought up this subject, and I think first and foremost, I am a big fan of the sport, and I do like to research and look into this whole kind of area. I mean, one of the things, there's lots of lessons that we can take as individuals, and that's what I want to move to on my next kind of subject area. There's a great deal you can take from these athletes. And when I say what can you take from these athletes, if you look at their lifestyles, you look at the disciplines, you look at the sacrifice, you look at the commitment that these individuals have to this particular sport, you can see what is required from them as people, as personalities, to become successful. We understand the level of sacrifice that they have to make. They depart from their families, their children. They'll go living on a training camp for several weeks, preparing, sacrificing in terms of controlling their dietary requirements. They can't eat too much food because they're trying to lose weight. They're trying to make weight. So making weight, they have to start living on a deficit on calories, reducing their calories and the types of food they're eating. This level of discipline is on a new. It takes people to a new level, especially those that want to become champions and want to become great. You understand the level of sacrifice that is required. I mean, the individual like Islam Makhachev, he has to leave his family, his children, his wife, his parents. He travels to America. He trains there, and he devotes himself for that cause during those several months that he's training, and that takes a lot. And if you look at your own life, wherever you are in your life, you don't have to be an athlete, you don't have to be involved in mixed martial arts, but some of these principles and qualities we can all learn from and we can take When's the last time that you really dedicated yourself to a cause? When was the last time you really made any sacrifice? When was the last time you really disciplined yourself for a certain purpose in life, certain goal in life? Maybe you've got health issues. Maybe your weight is slightly over what it should be. Maybe you've gone to a doctor and doctor said to you, you've got underlying health issues. Have you ever thought about changing your lifestyle, making a commitment to something new, to change habits that you've developed over years that can improve your health? Maybe it's a case of looking at what kind of nutrition, what kind of food you're eating. Are you getting enough exercise? Are you getting active? There's so much there that is going on that we can take lessons from. The issue of obsession is something that maybe I also want to touch on, because obsession can be a good and bad thing. We have to remember that as Muslims, it's very important and very key that whatever we do in life, we do for the sake of Allah. And that's the first and foremost point I want to make here, that we don't allow any of our passions, our obsessions to become our purpose. And this is the problem that we have in the Western culture, how we see dominantly people are defining their purpose in lives based upon the purpose that they have chosen for themselves. So as I maybe in previous shows highlighted, and I'll give the example of these fighters, that they're fighting their competition to become a champion becomes their obsession. And sometimes your obsession can impact other elements of your life. And what I'm trying to kind of develop here and try to build a case for you to understand that life is not a one-dimensional thing. Life has many facets to it. Life has many disciplines that you need to manage. And when you become a father, you become a husband, you manage a family, you manage whatever you manage, you've got multiple responsibilities and dependencies, and you have to become a very effective project manager. And if you look at project managers, they're never masters in anything, but rather they're, as the term goes in English, jack of all trades and master of none. So you have to become in tune with all of your responsibilities. And that means that, you have your passions, you have your goals, you have your hobbies, but those hobbies and passions don't impact your everyday responsibilities. They don't impact your duties and your obligations that you have to those people around you, be that your parents, be that your wives, be that your children, whoever it be that your community. And we have to hold ourselves to account, because it's important. When I look at my own life and I think about things that I have on my plate on a daily basis, and I don't mean plate in terms of my food, but I mean as a metaphor for the responsibilities that I have in my life, I need to make sure that I am achieving, that I am bringing an income that's sustaining my livelihood and my household. I am doing things that I enjoy to do, but I also make sure that I'm doing something to give back to the community, to give back in terms of dawah, to make sure that I am fulfilling these obligations that, number one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has defined for me. Because ultimately, for those of you that are Muslims and listening to the show, what is our criteria in life? What is our framework to life? How do we determine how much time we give to things in life? Because if we don't have that structure in our lives, what happens is that we become devoted to one thing in life. So you have some people that are so addicted and so obsessed by their purpose, be that, if you're in the mixed martial arts world, for example, you're so caught up in your fighting, you devote all your time to that. You exhaust your resources. That's your energy levels, your financial resources, your time. You're exhausted and invested so heavily in that by the time you come home, you don't have time for your family. You don't have time for your parents. You don't have time for your children or your wife or the bigger duty to your community and humanity in general. That the duty of the Muslim is not just to serve his own pockets and fill his own pockets, but his duty is far beyond that. That, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, he very blatantly and very bluntly, he says that I have not created mankind for no other purpose. Sorry, I have not created jinn and mankind for no other purpose but to worship me. And that should be the benchmark. That should be the beginning of everything that we do. And that's important that we take that structure for our lives. So if we are devoted to certain hobbies, those hobbies are in line with everything that we have. And we are people of the middle path. We are not people of the far left or the far right, but rather we are in the middle. We ensure that Islam and serving Allah, and then our duties to our parents and our wives and our children are forming that kind of bookshelf approach. So we know what's on the top shelf, we know what's the second shelf and the third shelf, and within that structure, we fit our hobbies, our passions in, and we understand that we as human beings have to be holistic in that approach and not too one dimensional. So it's important, whoever you are listening to this show right now, if you are one of those people that is highly passionate and driven by his or her goals, we have to always check back to the Quran and Sunnah and understand what is the benchmark, what is our requirements, what are our priorities, how do we prioritize our lives, what is the number one priority, and what is number two priority, what is number three priority. So we need to define those very clearly, and we need to make sure that we are doing those priorities and we are fulfilling them to the best of our abilities. And that's the important thing, brothers and sisters, that we don't get caught up in a world of delusion sometimes, that we are chasing our dreams so much that in the result of chasing our dreams, we are losing sight and foresight of what our purpose is. So please, look at your life, study your responsibilities, look at yourself, reflect on what you are doing. Are you one of those people that are so obsessed that you can't pull yourself away to commit yourself to other responsibilities? Do you make time for your family? Do you make time for your parents? Do you make time for all of those things? Do you make time for your dawah? Do you make time for those people around you in your community? Or do you ignore them and you're so single-minded and so focused in your own goals and pursuits that you don't have time for anybody else? And ultimately, you don't know the impact and interaction that you have with others, how it can impact others. SubhanAllah, this week I recall a message I sent out to multiple brothers, and one brother who's going through some hard times right now. He's struggling with his health and stuff. He started responding to me because I share my videos after these shows that I do, and he responded to me. He said, "Brother, I'm going through this, I'm going through that," and I spent about 5-10 minutes just having a conversation with him, giving him some advice and just words of encouragement more than anything, and support, because he was going through some difficulties at this time. And that's the interesting thing. Sometimes we don't know what others are going through, and we may be able to influence and support and help people around us. And I think it's important that we recall that. How are we doing for time? Okay, I think I'll take a short little break on that point, inshallah, and come back to you with some further conversations and discussions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Radio Apnea Waz. This is your Sunday afternoon live with your brother Abu Musa, live from the hours of 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon, inshallah. And before the little break that I had, I was discussing about a few issues. I was talking about the UFC 311. I was talking about, the importance of managing your time, your responsibilities, obsession, not to become obsessed and overly obsessed by things that we do. And that kind of brings me on quite nicely onto my next conversation here. And it's probably an area that we all need to kind of look at. And I probably was very guilty for this myself. And the subject of reading. And why did I bring this to this discussion today? Because I think reading is something really important. It's a skill that over time I personally felt was lacking in my life. I mean, I say this in a way that it's an important skill to have. Reading. I think reading books is one thing. Reading Quran is another thing, and gaining knowledge is an integral part of our development as Muslims. I mean, if we say the Quran was revealed by the very word Iqra, read, and this should really set the precedence for us in our lives. And I've been probably the major person in terms of neglecting my reading. I think for many years I was so caught up in other things in my life that I did not focus on the importance of reading. And it took many conversations with good brothers around me that kind of prompted me to start developing my own reading, developing my own library of books. And before you know it, subhanallah, you develop this thirst for reading. And it took me time, and I'm not going to say to you it came to me easy, because I'm probably the most lamest person when it comes to reading. But I encourage brothers and sisters that are listening to the show right now that go away and think about things that you enjoy reading. Think about the things that interest you. And in terms of your development in Islam, I think it's important, first and foremost, that we are reading Quran on a regular basis. And again, I'll hold my hands up and say to you that I was neglectful of reading Quran on a regular basis. And the Quran, when we look at it and we think about it, is the essence of our life, is the essence of who we are. And if we don't have a relationship, and I remember talking to some brothers, and I will say, and I will emphasize this point: surround yourself with good brothers, because good brothers will always remind you of your obligations, and they won't remind you in a negative way, but rather you will see from their conduct and their practices what you should be taking away from them. So these are brothers that not necessarily saying to me, "Oh, ask if you need to read more," but rather they were practically showing me what they were doing in their lives, how they were spending their times. And I'm not going to mention the brother's name, and he knows who he is, and I will attribute some of the things to him on my habitual habit of reading Quran, because I remember having these conversations about the importance of that relationship with the Quran, because we say on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah that the Quran will intercede for us. But a good point to think about is why will the Quran intercede for us on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah if we don't have a relationship with the Quran? And when you think about the word relationship, you have to look at what the definition of a relationship is. When you're seeing somebody on a regular basis, be that, you could have a relationship with your spouse, a relationship with a good friend of yours. A relationship is something that is sustained and maintained. Just like a plant, you water that plant constantly. It's a relationship you formed. But with human beings, we have a relationship. And the Quran is the most integral book in our lives that we should have a relationship with. And if you're sat here listening now to this show, and it's been maybe the last Ramadan that you picked the Quran up and you read it, because remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He loves the people who are consistent in their actions. Consistency means that on a regular basis you have made a commitment, and that commitment means that you've designated a time in the day to say, you know what, I am going to sit here at this time on a consistent basis, and I'm going to read verses, pages from the Quran. And remember, a couple of tips for you, brothers and sisters. Don't try to do too much in one time. Do something that you can sustain. And that's one of the first conversations and advices that I was given by this brother. He said to me, Asif, don't try to read too much. Read something that you can consistently do. Start with a mere 5 verses of the Quran. 5 lines, brothers and sisters. And I'm talking about here the Quran here, but I'm not saying the Quran only, but the Quran should be a habitual habit that we have in our lives. We need to, and if you're listening to this and you haven't opened the Quran up, then I'm urging you to pick the Quran up today, tomorrow. Set that goal for yourself. Set that time aside. Because if you don't set it aside, then the shaitan and the day will catch up with you, and it will give you other priorities and commitments. So my kind of routine is that when I wake up, I read the Quran first thing in the morning. And if I don't read it first thing in the morning, then I'll try to read it last thing at night. But I'm trying to maintain, I am more consistent in reading in the morning that I do manage to get it in the morning. But, again, it's building that habit, having that habit. And if you have something, then what happens is that your brain automatically tells you this is something you need to do. When I walk, excuse me, when I walk into my room downstairs, I know the Quran where it is. I know I need to pick it up. It becomes almost automated in your system. So Allah helps you when you help yourself. And it's obviously it's a famous verse in the Quran that Allah helps those that help themselves. That we need to take the step, but Allah will increase our love for the Quran and reading it and reading from it if we attempt to do that. And make that a promise for yourself. If it's 2025 and you want to set yourself a New Year's resolution, then make that one of your resolutions. Make it that you're not just reading the Quran, but you're learning from the Quran. You are understanding the Quran. You're increasing your knowledge in terms of what you're ascertaining from the Quran. It's not just reading empty words that have no impact on you, but rather those words are reshaping your personality, making you think, walking away, thinking about this verse, when it came, what was the circumstances of the Muslims, what was going on in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. These are all factual things that bring the Quran to life for us. And sometimes when you visualize these surahs being revealed, you can actually think about what the Prophet ﷺ was going through, the hardships that he may have faced, what the Sahabas were going through, what was the status of the Muslims, what stage were the Muslims at, were they in Makkah, were they in Medina, what was going on, did they have authority, did they not have authority, were they being oppressed, were they growing as a ummah? So it puts a lot of context to the situation, and that's really important. And alongside the Quran, I also have just general non-fictional books that I read for my own development. And just for your information, I have just merely finished a book that was entitled Web of Deceit by an author called Mark Curtis. And at the moment, I'm quite interested in my political history. I'm reading about European history, British history, American history, just to increase my knowledge and exposure of what colonialism has done to the world, to the Muslim world, to the third world, how and why we are in the state that we're in, and what this zulm or this zalim nation has done to those around us. And brothers and sisters, we all hear it and we all say it, but when you read and this book, Web of Deceit, I'll give you a quick overview of it. I mean, it goes through the history of Western colonialism, of Britain's kind of involvement in the Muslim world, primarily. Looks at the Muslim world, i.e., you look at nations like Indonesia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Bosnia, Chechnya. It goes through the last maybe 80, 90 to 100 years of enslavement that the British have created. And we are in the political situation we're in today because of the backdrop of what these people have done in our lands, what chaos and political instability they have created. And you realize how deep the rabbit hole is, brothers and sisters, that, due to their conniving, colluding relationships that they had with people in these nations, that they have created such a debt, an economic crisis, a social crisis, that it will take time for us to rebuild. And the sole purpose was to destroy any revivalist movements throughout our history that called for anything, that called for Islam in a political context. So it's important, brothers and sisters, that we take that time and we learn and develop our understanding. So we are not ignorant Muslims. We're not just Muslims that are just traipsing around the world today just with dini knowledge, but we need to have knowledge of the world. And it's really important that we marry those two things together, that we are Muslims who have a relationship with the Quran, but also have a relationship with current politics and community affairs that are going on. It's really important that we have a blend of the two that makes us completely whole, because we know from the classical scholars that they were engaged as much in society as they were with developing their knowledge of Quran and sciences and etc. etc. So that was a really key issue that I wanted to address. I just want to know what we're doing for time. How are we doing for time? Okay, so that's covered some topic there quite in detail, and I want to probably on a last bit of note there, just encourage you to look at the things that you'd like to read. Make a list of books that you're interested in. And again, If it's non-fiction that you're keen in, and that's what you spend your time doing, then try to look at books that or subjects that interest you. You know, me, I've got into political history and current kind of politics right now as well. I'm trying to get my head around a lot of stuff like that. That might not be something that ticks your box. It might be something else that you're interested in, but develop the thirst for reading, because it's really important and it's really critical. Because if you don't read today, then there's no chance our children will, because our children mimic our behavior. And if they see us doing something, then that will form and shape some of the things that they will have in their blueprint of what is normative behavior. Because as parents, we are role models, and we set the standard for our children. So that was another thing that prompted me to make sure I develop this habit. So when my children look at me, they can say, yeah, my dad used to read Quran. Yeah, my dad used to read books, and he's got a library of books. And that's what I want to create. It's important for them to take that away. You know, I enjoy my physical stuff. I like my physical activities, my training, my gym time, but I also want to develop myself holistically, that I am ticking all the boxes as a Muslim, that I am reading, developing my knowledge, my understanding of things. So it's keen, and we should oblige ourselves. We should put ourselves in a position that this is frowned upon us to develop knowledge. And that's really key for us to do that continuously, inshallah. So I'll take a short little break, brothers and sisters, on that note, and come back with you with some further conversations and discussions. Assalamu alaikum.
Graphics, logos, marketing, and really whatever you need for promo. Make a wish with genius. 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 That's DJENIUS.UK. Make a wish today.
Brother, why do you look upset?
Brother, since all morning, no customer coming, sitting, doing nothing.
Would you like to expand your business from small scale to large? Then don't delay and advertise on Apni Awaaz today. Call Shakil Javed on 078-381-49654 or call in studio and take advantage of our special advertising packages.
Get your business thriving.
Are you ready to make a difference this winter? Listen up. Imagine waking up to the piercing cold without a blanket. That's the reality for families in Neelam Valley. But you can change that. For just £15, you can provide a warm blanket to someone in desperate need. A single blanket can bring comfort, warmth and hope. Al Ubaidiyah Orphanage is calling on you to help us spread warmth this winter. Your donation can make all the difference. Donate £15 today and transform lives. Reach out to Al Ubaidiyah Orphanage through Barclays Bank, account 935-15389, sort code 203584. For more information, call 077-860-0505. Let's bring warmth to Neelam Valley, one blanket at a time.
All hits, all day, and it's all yours on Radio Apni Awaaz.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Radio Apni Awaaz. This is your Sunday afternoon show with your host, Abu Musa. And before the ad break, I was talking about the importance of reading, and I'm stressing on the importance of developing your knowledge, not just with Islam and Dini knowledge, but also worldly knowledge. And my advice to brothers and sisters was that if 2025 has kicked off and you've not set the resolution yet, set yourself a resolution to get the habit of reading. And as I was saying to you, it will take time. It's not going to happen overnight. You've got to be consistent. And I obviously earlier before this, I was talking about sacrifice, discipline, and commitment, which are key qualities in this task. Because when you embark on this journey of reading, it does require a little bit of sacrifice, a little bit of commitment and dedication. Because when you start something, you need to see it through. I mean, some of the books that I've started reading on, they're like 300-400 pages. And you think to yourself, boy, am I ever going to get through this? But, you know, consistently reading over time, be it a couple of pages, be it a couple of paragraphs, whatever it be, you just say to yourself, I need to do it, and allocate a time for yourself. You know, you need to really become good at organizing your life. And I mean, I'm not here to tell you that I'm such a great organizer, but it's a key skill that sometimes gets undervalued, and we don't realize the importance of time and how we utilize it. I mean, there's a very beautiful hadith of Rasulullah that Rasulullah talks about the 5 things before they go, and one of those 5 things was time. And if we take time for granted, then we lose because we've not acquired things during that time. And think about time in the respect that what benefit can you take from the information that you gain, and how will that information that you gain benefit others? If all you're looking for is filling your own pockets and making money and looking at profit and loss, not everything can be defined by profit and loss. And I understand that income is important and sustainability is important, and you need to have a means to do that. But don't make that the only means that you have in life, that all you're doing is chasing money, and you have no ethical, moral position or religious position in your life that influences and shapes the way you think towards these things. Make everything built around that. Don't make your purpose and your passion your deen, and then you try to make Islam fit around that. Rather, you make Islam the structure that everything else fits around. So your passion, your hobbies, your career, your job, your business kind of ventures and what have you, your self-development, your relationships. These are all categories within our lives that we all have, and they all need feeding. They all need time. And Islam gives us priority. Islam defines what comes first, what comes second. So it's important that we use that yardstick, and we don't let ourselves become the definer of what is acceptable. So I suddenly decide that, I want to devote, I don't know, 60 hours in a week to my passion. And my passion is making money, and I want to make money every day. And that's all I care about. I don't care about my parents. I haven't got time for them. When I have time, I might go see them. I've got a wife and kids, and you know what? They're at home. They can do what they want to do. I don't really care. I've got to go out there and make money, and I've got to sustain that home. So it's my justification for not being there. But your presence is also important. Your time with your parents is really important. That thing that you can do for them and they can do for you is really critical. And again, it goes back to organizing yourself, giving that structure in your life that you can give them time, be it a day, be half a day, be a couple of days, whatever it is, invest in giving that time to the relevant people. And same at home, if you've got children, you've got a wife, you've got commitments outside to your community and what have you, fulfill them. Do as much as you can, but also make sure that I have a diary. It's one of the ways I organize my life. I put things in there. I remind myself of certain things. It's an important tool I use. That's what works for me. Doesn't necessarily mean it works for you, but that's something that I use for myself, and it helps me, kind of organize and structure my life. I want to move on to the next kind of conversation that I wanted to pick up on. And before I do that, just a couple of things I want to just mention in conversation here. Obviously, we know the situation in Palestine is still ongoing, even though there has been a ceasefire that's been agreed between Israel and Palestine. Where we are with that ceasefire, what will it look like? I'm not too sure at the moment right now. Will Israel actually uphold that ceasefire given their past record? I don't know. Again, very unlikely, given the fact, the damage they've done, the chaos they've created, the destruction of the lives of the Muslims in Palestine. It's an interesting situation how the West can put this together and make it look like a ceasefire deal, they call it. A deal is almost like something that two parties agree to, that is of equivalence. But the way the deal looks, it always favors the Israeli state, according to the way the ceasefire agreement has been made. The withdrawal of troops, the releasing of hostages, etc., etc. But you can't turn back and change the death and destruction that Israel has done, and nobody has accounted Israel for the death and destruction that it has caused, the lives that is destroyed, the families that is crippled, the infrastructure of a society that is completely destroyed. When you look at the ruins of Gaza, it makes you want to cry, makes you want to bleed. When you look at the injustices of the world, and you see that the governments of the world sit there watching, knowing full well what's going on. And we are here in the UK, the home of the nation that has supported and funded the state of Israel, that keeps funding it, that supports it militarily, supports it through its media. And we are still desperately asking this government to support the plight of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. We need to wake up and realize that, this nation is not going to support us as it is, the very nation that has done enough colonization and occupation of lands throughout its devastating history. So we should not look to them for anything other than, we should look towards Islam for anything and everything in terms of our solutions. But anyway, moving on, I just wanted to touch on a Jummah khutbah that I attended a few weeks ago now, but it's been ringing in the back of my head, and I think it's an important point that I want to just touch on also. It was by a brother called Yusha Evans. Yusha Evans is quite a well-known social media influencer and a khatib, and he's given lectures on many things Islamically related. And I think from his profession, he's also a coach and a mentor for people in terms of their personal development and professional development. So, alhamdulillah, he was in the UK, I think that particular week or month or whatever it was, and he attended the mosque that I go for Jummah, and he gave quite a fiery and moving speech on the importance of Muslims forgiving their Muslim brethren and loving their Muslim brethren for the sake of Allah. And how it kind of started off was he was making reference to the state of the ummah right now, how we are facing such immense persecution and oppression. And his argument was that he had made a deep dive into the history of Islam to look at why are we in the worst state that we are in? Why is the condition of the Muslims in such a dire state when in the history we never had this? Why is this the case? Let me look at history. Let me study history. Let me look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and see why. What is missing? What is the link that is missing today that's allowing these governments and these nations to feed off our resources, to feed on the blood of the Muslims? And his conclusion, brothers and sisters, was that we have so many defects in ourselves. This is his words. To some degree, yeah, not quite, but we have so many defects within ourselves as Muslims that we cannot unite on small issues, and we cannot get over on small issues like, for example, family disputes, brotherly disputes, community disputes, that we don't love each other for the sake of Allah, that we are exposing ourselves. And I was kind of a bit taken back by his comment, because I thought he was going to turn around and say, let's look at the example of Britain and America. Why do they not get the treatment that the Muslim Ummah gets? Why are they so superior and strong? Do they actually love each other for the sake of capitalism? Do they love each other for the sake of their government? No, they don't. But yet we do, and we recognize that importance. But what is it that sets them apart from the Muslim Ummah? Maybe it could be the fact that they have a state apparatus that has a military, that has an economic kind of power and an economic kind of enslavement of the world, that has the makeup of a state that actually serves the interests of the public, of the society. It actually has created a safe haven for its society. I mean, it's not the perfect society, far from it, but it's got a functioning society. And when I say a functioning society, that majority of the people in those societies are living a reasonable standard of living. We have access to resources, we have access to services, we have a functioning society, a functioning state. And you have a military also that actually acts on the interests of that state. So I thought he was going to highlight the obvious factors, because as a Muslim state, there is no Islamic state out there, we know. And our Muslim armies don't serve the purpose for the people, rather for itself. So we can see that we don't have the defense mechanisms of a state. Palestine is exposed because it does not have a military, does not have an infrastructure, does not have the capabilities to defend itself. So that, to me, is the obvious reason why we are in the state that we're in. It's got nothing to do with the fact that, we don't love each other for the sake of Allah. I mean, that's a complete diversion from the actual issue at hand, because if you have a nation that is powerful, that is strong militarily, physically, then who is going to attack it? We are being attacked because we are naked as a state. We don't have the infrastructure to protect itself. Hence, why the world is attacking this ummah and exposing the ummah. Because if we had that defense mechanism, if we had a military that sole purpose was to protect the ummah's resources, was to protect the ummah's blood and land, then who would do that? Who would do that? They wouldn't, would they? So that was my thought. How are we doing for time? Sorry, you said what? Yeah. So yeah. Just to wrap that up there on that point there, that is what we need, and that's what we lack. That's what we don't have. So yeah. On that note, brothers and sisters, I'm going to take another break. You don't realize time, how quickly it flies. I mean, the moment you start a conversation, 12, 13, 14 minutes have passed by. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to take a short little break, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome back to the Sunday afternoon live with your brother Abu Musa. And this is the last quarter or last segment of the show now, inshallah. We're going to heading towards 4 p.m. inshallah. So as I was saying, and I'm going to wrap the show up with this last topic and last conversation, I think, which is very, very, very important. Then they say they leave the best to last, or leave the most important to last. This subject here, the last one that I'm going to touch on, is currently a trending topic, and it's about our sister Afia Siddiqui, who, for those of you that know and don't know, she has been held captive now for over 20 years in the prisons of America. Prior to that, she was a prisoner of the Bagram in Afghanistan. But just to give you some insight into who Dr. Afia Siddiqui is, it's important that we understand her plight and her life, and why we are calling for her release. So there's been recently, many of you will know, there's been a petition going around at the moment looking for 1 billion signatures to get the release of our sister Afia Siddiqui. Sister Afia Siddiqui was a well-known physicist, I think, nuclear scientist, very intelligent, highly intelligent sister. She did a lot of positive work for Islam. And if we backtrack and go back to post 9/11, there was a lot of policies introduced in the American government that created more harsher environments uh, for the Muslim groups and Muslim organizations and Muslim individuals in America. Secret services like the CIA and the FBI were given pretty much a free rein to go out there and do whatever they want, hold anyone captive without any reason or justification or any evidence, uh, put them in the most hostile environments. And our sister, Dr. Afia Siddiqui, was one individual who was captured at the time. And what I urge you to do, first of all, is watch a podcast by Thinking Muslim brother, and on the podcast you have Dr. Afia Siddiqui's solicitor. I've forgotten his name. I think Clive something he's called, but he basically talks about the entire case of Dr. Afia Siddiqui, and I honestly I urge you to listen to it because it's a very moving story and case of the sister. And if you don't know, then you need to find out who she is and what she's gone through. Like I says, back in 2001, post 9/11, a lot of laws were introduced and policies were introduced to change the landscape of America that allowed a lot of people to be held without any kind of charge or any evidence against them. And apparently, this case here, Dr. Afia Siddiqui was at the time in Pakistan living with her husband and her children, two children, and she was due to give birth to her third child. And the story goes that they were in transportation and they were moving. I don't know where they were heading in Karachi or what have you, but during their journey, they were abducted. They were arrested. She was taken from her family. Her children were separated from her. She had two older kids, one boy, one girl, and a young son who was born around that time. From what I know, the son and the daughter was moved into a Christian home in Afghanistan. So some family adopted her, took her on, and changed her identity and what have you. Her son was arrested and took into some prisons in Afghanistan and locked up there. He was given a new identity, and he was told aggressively and threatened that if he ever mentioned his name and who he was and who he belonged to, that he would be killed. So this is a young boy, maybe at the age of I don't know. I think he was younger than 10 years old. Sorry, he was 6 years old actually, and he was arrested in Kabul prison for 5 years, and you can't imagine the difficulty and hardship the young boy went through that time. That if anybody even they say when the sister of Dr. Afia Siddiqui found the son of Afia Siddiqui, he wouldn't even accept and tell her real name because he was denying it because how scared he was, how threatened he was by this whole case of if you mention who you are or even tell anybody who you are, that you will be killed, you will be tortured. You don't know the impact of the psychology it has on a child. But yeah, she was removed from her children. She was imprisoned in a prison, Bagram prison. There she faced torture, rape, humiliation. You name it, it happened to her. Um, and this case, is shocking because there was no charges against her. And even the charge that was made against her, when you hear how ridiculous it was, that Dr. Afia Siddiqui, if you read the case, that she had killed two FBI agents. And how did that happen? When you read the story and the case of her taking these guns from the agents and shooting them and killing them, it sounds so far fetched that even Hollywood movies wouldn't even. Sorry, they'd probably create a scene like that. But this small framed, very, very, fragile individual could even do such a thing like that. Anyway, she's been sentenced to 86 years in prison in Texas. That is the current status, and where obviously this petition that is going on is trying to release Dr. Afia Siddiqui from that. And I make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala releases her very soon and gives his sister back her life. I mean, what life she's got left, Allah knows best. But the plight of her story and her case is shocking, and it shows you the injustices that are being served to the ummah out there. That the West, as much as it tried to represent itself as a beacon of human rights and what have you, the only human rights that they will expose and they will bring to the forefront are those that suit them and suit their agenda. But they never will make mention of those issues that have no interest in them, that are linked to their agenda and linked to their policies that have created these situations. I mean, Guantanamo Bay is an example of one prison off the radar that so much evil, torture, and terrorism has taken place there that we don't know. We don't know the full horrific stories. We do know from some case studies, as Muazzam Beg of Cage has highlighted some of the plight of some of the prisoners in there and his own experience of being in there. But again, brothers and sisters, if we are looking for justice in the West, we need to know that this is not a civilization that gives real justice. It will never serve justice. But we must continue the fight and the plight for our brothers and sisters that are, held in prison, that are held in torture camps like this. And we need to bring these stories and these new stories to the forefront so those around us can hear and spread the word. That's what I can do. That's what I'm trying to do, inshallah. But on that note, inshallah, I ask you to make dua for those brothers and sisters that are in these environments and these situations. Make dua for those brothers and sisters in Palestine, in any oppressed nation. And I ask also, to make dua for the brothers that are working hard on this station here, trying to make it, trying to use this platform for some good for our community, to support these causes. If you're a business, inshallah, please get in touch with the radio here. Donate, sponsor, get your adverts on here, whatever it is you can do to help support this good cause, inshallah. It will be sadaqah jariyah for you in the akhirah, inshallah. And on that note, if I have said anything good, then that is from Allah, and anything that I have said that is wrong is from me. Inshallah ta'ala, I hope to be here next week to speak to you again on topics that are some benefit to you, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.